Hi, my name is Jignesh and I'm from Canopus. Today, we are going to start a new journey where we'll build a Flutter app from scratch. Um, and for that, we'll use this app, Khelo app, which is an open source cricket management kind of app. If you have heard of uh, Greek heroes, then this is kind of similar but open source. It allows you to manage your matches, scores, teams, tournaments, like everything related to cricket. So um, yeah, what we'll do is we'll have a long series of tutorials. We'll start from a very base, and that is the onboarding screen, and then yeah, we'll go into details. Basically we'll create everything that we see here step by step, and in between I'll also explain you related Flutter concepts. So if you are new with Flutter, then also yeah, you can learn lots of things from this tutorial. So yeah, let's get started. I have created an empty project here, that is Khelo clone, because it's kind of a clone. And if you see here, then this is the default state. I haven't modified anything, and if I run it, then it basically shows this simulator. And as you can see here, yeah, there's this like counter and this button counter, and if you press it, it gets increased. And yeah, that's it. That's what implemented in this template. So yeah, let's see how Flutter works. By default, Flutter has this main.dart file, and in that we have this main function, and that is the entry point for any app. And yeah, whatever you do, basically this is where the app gets initiated. And then if you see here, then we have this run app function, and if you see the signature, then it accepts a widget. And that brings us to the question of, like, what is widget. In Flutter, widget is a building block. Everything that is rendered on the screen is a widget. That includes whole screen, whole app, and even a minor, element like icon. So from smallest thing to the biggest thing, everything that you see on the screen is basically a widget. Without widget, you can almost do nothing in Flutter. So yeah, and then what happens is, like, Flutter provides a few ready-made widget that we can use, and it also allows us to build our own widget. And the way we can do it is by extending the classes, that stateless widget and stateful widget. Yeah, so in Flutter, we have two types of widget: stateless and stateful. If you are familiar with the state concept, then anything that needs mutation is kind of stateful widget, and anything that is static, like it never really changes, then that is stateless widget. That we can define with stateless widget. If you see this, then like when we click here, then this gets increased, right? So this screen widget is basically a stateful widget, right? Because this state needs to be mutated. When I click on this button, then it will become 19, and if I click again, then it will become 20. So we are mutating the state here, and that's why this screen requires stateful widget. But think about this header. It's a stateless widget, and that means, like, once Flutter has rendered that, it never really renders that again. I mean, like, we don't know what goes under the hood, but you can kind of think of it like, Flutter does lots of optimization if you are using stateless widget, because if once it is rendered, then Flutter doesn't need to care whether it will change or not. So it can skip lots of compute, and yeah, it can render your app very flawlessly. So that is the thing. Whenever possible, use stateless widget, but if you have something that needs mutation, then go ahead with the stateful widget. um, so yeah, how do we make sense of this, that is this default template that is here? So yeah, let's start checking things. So run app basically accepts a widget. So what we have done is we have created a widget for whole application, and we are calling it my app. And if you see, then it extends stateless widget. That means, like, this widget this particular class doesn't change, and that doesn't mean like children of those widget can also not change. Like if you see here, then we have um, my home page, right? That is like this whole screen, and it might change and it has its own life cycle. But what we are saying is like this, anything that is part of this widget will not change. So what do we have here? Like if you want to build any widget in Flutter, then you need to implement this build method, and from there you need to return the widget tree that you want to render for that widget. Suppose if I create a new stateless widget and I call it my widget, then it is basically a very empty placeholder, and yeah, I just replaced it with hello, and let's see if we can put it here and run it. No, because it's saying that it needs direction and all, because yeah, I think my app needs to be at root, otherwise it doesn't get this direction. Like in language we can have left to right and right to left, so we don't know which one will be used here. So what it is saying is in material app or widget app, widget at top of your application widget tree, and it introduces this directionality. So yeah, you must need this material app. But if let's do something here, like let's try to replace this my home page with my widget and see what happens. If we run this, then you see hello, right? So it's working. Or now we have like the smallest possible app here, and if you see, then we have this material app that is also a widget that is provided. Flutter recommends that we use that as a base widget. So if you see any app, then at the root you will mostly see this material app, or another is Cupertino app. Yeah, one of the app. So this is basically, if you want iOS like kind of guidelines and style, then this is the one you can use. Otherwise you can use material. So yeah, if we run this, then you see hello here, and if we understand the widget tree, then we have this material app, and as a child we have set this my widget. So that is basically rendering this hello, and yeah, that's it. So in Flutter, widget or view, I would say, is kind of the hierarchy where each widget adds its value and then it can have children's. So if you see here, then material app is basically a widget that adds some of the basic things that are needed, and then it can have children and you can add it with home field. And if you see my widget, then in that we are just returning text, right? And in text we are providing hello. So like this material, the current hierarchy we have is like we have my widget first, in that we have material app widget, and in that we have this my widget again, and then inside that we have this text widget. So yeah, that is about widget. Now let's try to use this home page, and let's see what do we have there. Let me run this again. So yeah, we are now rendering this my home page. So if you see this, then this is a stateful widget, as I mentioned earlier. Like we have this counter here, and that's why we need to have a state here, right? And that's why we need a stateful widget, because with stateless we cannot update part of that widget. So yeah, we have my homepage here, and if I remove this comment, let me actually remove these comments. I'll explain them to you. It's a very small thing, but like comments are making it bigger than that is. So yeah, if you see my homepage, then it has these two classes instead of one. The first one extends stateful widget, and if you see that, then it has this method create state, and in that we are returning state, and that class is another class that we have created that extends the state. So in for stateful widget, you'll always have two classes, one for the widget and another for state, because the state can change, right? And this will not change. So we have this separate method, and this is lots of boilerplate. So there is a shortcut for creating these classes in Flutter. Like if you want to create, just start if you want to create a widgets, then just start typing here st, and st-less is basically Flutter stateless widget class. And if you want to create stateful widget, then you can select this and just type the widget name here, and that's it. It's giving error because we have another class with the same name, but yeah, it's gone. And yeah, you see here that it created these two classes, and we don't need to add these things, which we can just start overriding this text here or whatever we want to put here. Okay, so that was about widget. And yeah, now let's have a look at what is inside the my homepage. Then what we see here is a scaffold. Scaffold is a widget that represents a screen on in Flutter app. So if you see, if you have an app with 10 screens, then you'll have one material app, and then each screen will be a separate widget, and in that scaffold will be at root. And this is just a scaffold is basically a class that provides ready-made template for most of the things that you need in a screen, but that doesn't mean it's necessary. Let's just remove it and see what happens. Like we can return here hello, and you see here it's working. Right now, suppose we want to create what we had earlier, right? So we can also do that. There's no need of scaffold. Suppose if we use column, then the first thing that we see here is the app bar. So let's take that from the existing code. So yeah, you see here with column and app bar we see upper views, and now what we had is this center thing, right? Let's try to copy that and see what happens. You see here, yeah, it's basically the style is all messed up because a few widgets require scaffold to be its parent, because it fetches or gets a few style elements from that. But you see the widgets here, right? It's working. So, and you can also like wrap this in a container and provide a background color, so it is white, and then you can also expand this to make it full screen, right? So it's kind of looking similar now. And we can also add that I would say the floating action button. And for that, if we want to do that, then let's use stack and children. And the first children we have, I'll explain all this in detail. I'm just showing you like like why do we have this thing called scaffold, what's the importance of scaffold. So yeah, we have stack now, and I can now add this floating action button at top. And as you can see here, if I run this, then you see floating action button here, right? And if I want, because I need to put this expanded here and remove from here. So yeah, now you see here, right? And we can also align this at bottom with align widget. We can say bottom right, and it's there. And we can also give this padding and safe area and stuff like that. So you might have noticed that almost everything that you see is a widget, right? Like we have used a widget for aligning this floating action button at bottom right. We have used widget for aligning this app bar and the bottom section in a sequence, right? And then we have used a widget to show the screen and this button on top of each other, and that is this stack, right? So yeah, basically, as I mentioned earlier, like everything is kind of a widget. Each widget kind of adds its value, and then it can also have children that can that you can define. Like you in stack, we can have children that is the first, like that you want to lay out on top of each other. So yeah, that is scaffold. Basically, you don't need to do all of this in every screen. So that's why Flutter provides this scaffold widget. So basically less work for us. And if we run this, then yeah, it's kind of similar. So now let's try to understand what's going on here. Like you see, we have this counter here, and the behavior is that when we press, it gets increased, right? So we have a counter here, and if we check the button, then it has three fields: on press, tooltip, and child. So let's start with child. Child is basically saying that like what should be inside this floating action button, and that is add icon here, right? As you can see, we have this plus button here. Then we have this tooltip that is shown when this is long pressed. So that is the second argument that this Flutter action button accepts. There are so many, but we have like by default there are only three here. So another is on pressed, and this is an important one. This is a function. Here we can pass a function. Basically, you see a word callback. So it's a callback that is invoked by this widget when this is tapped. So what we are doing here is we are passing our function increment counter here, and as you can see here, what we are doing here is basically increasing the number of counter. So we can also define it like this, right? Let's try to run and see, and you can see it will not work. The reason is that Flutter is kind of Flutter tries to optimize everything, so it doesn't know if you change the variable, and it try to off keep track of all the variables, then it will be too much of work, and in the end it might end up rendering things even when you don't want to. So Flutter provides this set state method, and whenever you try to change a state inside this callback, then that triggers a refresh of the screen. So even though this is a stateful widget, by default just changing the variable doesn't update the screen here. And if I run this again, then as you can see, we have error here. We can just say a counter plus plus, and yeah, now it should work fine. So this is the logic of increment counter, and that is it. And what we are doing in the text here is like we have the center widget, so we are saying center these views, and then the children of that is a column, so we are saying whatever children are, put them in sequence, vertical sequence. The first widget is you have pushed the button this many times, a text, and that is displayed here. And then we have counter, and there we are just converting this counter variable to a string and displaying it here. There are many ways to do this. Like instead of doing this, you can just use counter.string and it will work similarly. So this is it. Basically very simple thing. We have this counter widget, and on click of that we are incrementing the counter, and that triggers the refresh because we have set state here, and this part will be refreshed, and we can see updated value here. Very simple thing, but important to understand like how stateful widget works. Okay, so now let's see some basic widgets that we'll use over and over. So if we talk about containers, what I mean by containers is widgets that just arranges other widgets. Like you can have a vertical list of widget, and then you can have horizontal list of the widget, and then you can have a stack of the widget that draws each widget on top of each other. So if you think of this widget, then they don't really draw anything. They just manage other widgets, and that's why I refer to them as container widgets. So three main widgets that we'll keep using and using in this area. One is column, that you will need to use when you want to vertically align some widgets. And then we have row, and that you will use when you want to horizontally align some widgets. And then we have stack, that you will use when you want to align widgets on top of each other in Z stack. Like kind of if you see the clone, then we had that floating action button on top of the screen, right? That is basically Z index. Yeah. Now let's start implementing our actual UI, and that is this onboarding screen. So if you think about this, then this is basically vertically aligned widgets, right? We have this image, and then we have this text and description, and then we have this button. So Now, first thing we'll need is this vertical list. So let me try to do that. I'll just remove this thing and I'll create a new stateless widget because we don't have any state here, right? It's an onboarding screen and there's no state. So let's see if let's create onboarding widget, or you can even call it onboarding screen. Okay. Now, as we just had a look, the first one needs to be a scaffold, right? And in scaffold we'll not have a bar because here we don't have one. And in body, let's create one column, okay, and in that we'll have children, okay. Now let's start with the first one. We will create two methods, separate methods, to return the body and then this CTA. So let's first create this body method, and then there we have this build context, and here we are for now just returning some text, and we can write onboarding screen, and then another one we have is CTA. Okay. It will also have some text. Let's call it summary. Okay. So we created these two separate methods, and then as you can see, what we can do is instead of just creating a div hierarchy here, we can also divide that into methods. So everyone is everything is well organized. So now I can just call this method body and the CTA, and if I run this, then I'll probably need to update this one. Onboarding screen, and now there's still one error, and that is we don't have semicolon here. And yeah, if I run this, then you see here we have a column, and in that we have some text, and then this onboarding screen text and some screen text. So there are so many things, but at least we are seeing the text that we have added in a column. First thing we need to do is we need to add safe area here, because we don't want to display our UI in parts where there are system and navigation menus are there. So we don't want to display in the status bar area and also in this navigation bar menu. So what we'll do is there's I think one flag here. I'm not sure about that. I don't think we have, but yeah, easy fix is to just wrap that thing with safe area, and now as you can see the issue is fixed. Okay. Now another thing we want to do is, as you can see here, this button is fixed right here, and then this body takes rest of the area. So what we want to do is we always want to show this button, we'll also have smaller devices, right? On that, if it gets really small, then what we want is it's fine if this gets smaller, but this should never be hidden, right? So what we want is this button should always take its area first, and then rest of the space should be assigned to the body. That we can easily do. In column, if you add anything, if you wrap anything with expanded, okay, then that is the behavior you get. You basically have this. Now as you can see, this area is assigned to this onboarding screen, and then button text is here. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to add one, instead of returning text here, we'll add button. I'm not sure which button we should use, so let's have a look at Flutter documentation. So we have flat button, raised button, and outline button. That was, I think, old widget. Yeah. So for new widget, we have text button, elevated button, and outline button. So this text button is basically a button where there's no background at all. It's like this context or this summary where there's a button, but it's clickable and there's no background. And then we have this elevated button. Elevated button is like this get started button. And then outline button is kind of a button where you'll have an outline. Let me see if I can find that. like kind of this one, where there's an outline. And yeah, so I think for our use case, elevated button makes lots of sense. So we'll basically use this elevated button. Okay, and then I can return this here. Okay. um, I think this is basically not supported now. We have foreground color, background color. So let's see what colors we want. Okay, we have this foreground color. If we have a look at this, then that is our primary color. And our primary color is basically, we can that is already defined, but you can kind of have a look at that here. It's basically this one, 01579B. So that's what we want here. We want a background color. Okay, and then a color dot from. Now you see, we need to create this button from this color from hex code, right? So there are a few ways. Let's see, Flutter color from hex code. Okay, we can define it this way, where the first two bits are, I think, the alpha channel, and then rest of the things are the color code. So we can define our primary color here for now, like this. Okay, and here we'll be defining the color that we got from the Figma, and that is our color here. Okay, as you can see, it's that color now, and we can easily use that here. Right. Okay, now we want a foreground color, right? A foreground color is definitely a white color here. As you can see, it's a white, so that's what we'll assign, colors dot white. Okay, and there's a minimum size here. Minimum size, I think we can give it 50 height, and yeah, I think 50 height should be enough. And then we have padding. I think padding is horizontal 16, it's fine. And then shape, rounded, rectangular border. Border radius is basically circular radius 2. What we want is radius of 25, because if you see here, then you see it's fully rounded, right? And that means it needs to be the height of half of the height of the button. So as you can see, now it kind of looks similar. It's not the same still. Let's update the text. Let's play cricket. Okay. And if we see here, then P and C are capitals, so probably we'll do that. And if we run that, then you see two issues here now. Button is there, but it's not fully expanded, and it also doesn't have this padding that this screen is having. So if we see here, then we have 16 padding from the edges, so we can easily do that. Let me see if we have that option here. No. So one thing we can do is we can easily wrap this into a padding widget, right? And in padding, we want to assign that to 16. And now let's see how it looks. Okay, it's looking good now. And then we want to make this full, like let's see if double dot infinity is supported here. Yes, it is. And now, as you can see, it kind of looks what we have in design, right? So we are done with this ETA. Next thing we want is body. In body, we have two things: this image and this text. So the first image, we'll need to export that image, and we'll add that. Um, let's see if we can add SVG here. I exported the graphics, and it's here now. Let me copy that, and I'll add. So In Flutter, if we search about that, Flutter assets image, okay, then we need to create a directory in the root directory name assets, and inside that we can add our things. Okay, so let's create one here, new directory, and let's call it assets. Okay, and then here we'll add that file, and let's call it onboard image. Okay, .svg, and you can kind of see that here, right? Looks fine, and that is the first step. And what we need to do now is we need to define that into assets of our pubspec.yaml file. So we'll go there, and let's define that here. You have some examples here as well, so you can just uncomment them, and you need to fix indentation, and yeah, you can just say on board image.svg. I think that's what we had. Let's see. Yeah, I think, and we can call this pub get, and we can now run the app. One important thing is to always restart the app completely when you are adding an asset, because in past I have some experiences where hot reload doesn't really work with assets. So yeah, if you run if you run into that kind of issue, then yeah, you can add asset. And if we see here, then it's saying that it cannot find the image. Let's see if we made a mistake. Do we need to create the directory inside the lib or not? Um, Root of your project. So ideally it should work, but it's not working. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to add assets directory here. So at least we know that when we add something, then it's trying to load that, and if it's not there, then it will throw an error. And that is a good thing, because we'll fail early, and then we'll know like we need to fix this, instead of failing at runtime and wondering like why my image is not being loaded. So now let's try to run this. Okay, it's running now. Now we need to see how we can add image in Flutter add image. Okay, and then we can add or load that image with image.asset. Let's try this. This will not work because I think this doesn't support SVG by default. We need to use a library to support SVG, but let's try that. If you go here, and in the body, if as a child I try to load the image, then it would be onboard image.svg, and if I reload this, then yeah, it says invalid image data, because by default Flutter doesn't support svg file. So now let's see how we can fix that. Flutter svg, let's search that, and there's a really good plugin that from Flutter itself that we can use here. And yeah, if we go to installing, then yeah, we need to add this file, this line into dependencies section. So let's do that. We go to pubspec.yaml. This is our main file, like heart of the Flutter. Like any configuration that you need to make, you'll mostly find it here. And yeah, whenever you make change, make sure you call pub get, and it will get those dependencies. So now we'll stop the app, and we'll run it. And now let's see how we can actually use this. So svg picture.asset, and That's it. I think it's really simple. So let's try to use that. Here instead of image.asset, we'll need to use svgpicture.asset and then the path. Okay. Now as you can see, it's here and it's looking good. But you see some space here, right? That's, I think, not something we expected. So let's see the feed. And most of the time with images, you'll have to decide which type of feed you want to use. Depending on the use case, you will need to use different type of feed. So here we are using cover, and then we have contain, but that is still here. I think not sure why we have this padding. Let me try to add column here to see what happens. And this is done test. Let's see if this hello has that padding. It's center aligned basically, so we'll have to. Yeah, this hello also has this padding, so maybe it's added by the shape area. Let's see. I don't think it's added by shape area. Definitely we didn't have that padding for the button, right? Because if we make this 0, then button is basically, fully expanding. So it's somewhere in this body that we are getting that. And let's see what we can do. Maybe it's not taking full width, so I'll try to do that width. And yeah, basically now it's making it fully. That was the issue, it was not taking full width. So I think we have width here as well that we can assign. We can actually assign that height here for the container, and we can assign that. Sorry, I was talking about width. Now let's remove this and see if it's working. Yeah, now as you can see, the first thing is done. Let me remove this text now. Okay, so the image is there now. Okay, it's done. Now what we have is this title and description. So title is get your ticket on. Let's try to do that. So in column we have this SVG picture first. Now we'll add another text, and the text is get your ticket on. Okay. Now the second text that we have is this long text that I'll just copy. Okay, if I run this, then yeah, you can see it's being displayed, but there are two issues. One is that it does not have that padding, okay, edge padding that we have here, that is around 16, and also the style is very different. So let's first fix the padding. To give this padding, we have two options. One is like we wrap both of this into padding, and we give it padding of 16. So yeah, as you can see, it's working now. And another is like we also wrap this with padding, and we make it 16. Okay, it's working now. Here, as you can see, if we see all padding here, then it will assign padding on all the edges. So it's adding 16 padding here as well, and it's also adding padding here. I mean, the bottom text is also adding padding. So here the space is 32, and that's not, I think, what we desired. So another way to fix this is like we can, instead of providing all, we can provide like symmetric constructor here, and then we can say, on give assign padding only for horizontal. And now as you can see, it's fixed. It's 16 here, 16 here, and it's looking good. So padding is fixed. So this is one way to do it, as I said. Another way you can do it is like you can create a padding widget, and then you can have a column inside that, and in that you can put this both the text, okay, and as you can see, it's working now. You need to set cross axis alignment to start. So yeah, it's good. Now you need to add padding here. One way to do that is size box, and that allows you to add some heights here. Okay, this is one widget that also like you will use a lot. So as you can see here, we have title and description, 16 distance between that, and everything is looking good. So now the only thing remaining is this title style. So in text, there's one style property that we can provide, and that accepts this text style. So let's do that. Style, okay, and we can provide text style. What we want is, let's see what's the requirement from Figma. If you see here, then it's basically a header one, and the bottom one is a subheader one. So let's first do it for header one. We don't know what is header one, and what should be its style. So we'll go to Figma. Depending on your Figma guidelines, you might also have directly the style there, but yeah, here we have a separate style defined here. And if you see here, then header one is semi-bold and 26 pixel. Okay, so we can do that. We can provide font size that is 26, and font weight. We don't have semi-bold available by default, but we have these different ranges. So we can open that and see what semi-bold is. So as you can see here, 600 is semi-bold. So yeah, we can provide 600 here, and let's see. So it's kind of getting there, right? Get your cricket on. We have different font here, so it's looking a bit different, but yeah, otherwise it's kind of the same here. Okay. Another thing we have is this subheader one. So let's see for what do we need to use for subheader. Okay, so it's medium and the size is 18px. Okay, that's now we know how to do. We can provide style, and in that we can provide 16 and 18, and then another weight, and that should be 500, I guess, for the medium. Yeah, so now it's medium, but as you can see, the colors are different, right? This is not definitely what we have in design. Like this is actually like very different. So if you see, then it's using text color / disable dark, and let's see the color of the disable dark. So if we go here and go to color style, then this is text color, and in that we have disable dark, and the pixel of that is 40% black. I mean the hex code of, that color is 40% black. So that's what we'll need to use here. And what we can do is also we can define that color here. Don't worry about this for now, because in next tutorial we'll see how we can manage this easily with style, just like Figma, and then we can say this needs to be header one, this needs to be text secondary and text disable, and it will take its color. But for now, yeah, we can see here what we want is pure black. So this all will be black, and that is 0, and opacity is basically alpha is 40. Okay, so we have 40% black here. We are calling it disable dark, and let's use that here. There's a color property in text style, and there will provide disable dark. Let's run it, and yeah, it's looking good. And yeah, that's it For this tutorial, there are a few things remaining. Like, we haven't set font yet, and we also haven't set this spacing here. So if you see here, then it's a bit different because here we have lot less letter spacing, and yeah, here it's like wide kind of thing. So yeah, that's what we'll see in the second one, where we'll set up themes and like how we can reuse this across the app, and we'll also define a router so that we'll know, like, from onboarding we'll need to open this authentication screen, right? So when you click on Let's Play Cricket, a user will need to authenticate before they can start using application. So that's what we'll see in the next tutorial. Yeah, I think that's it. Bye.